Yeah, it is another episode of the Autumn Windbags. RJ Clifford, Juan Soto. Let's have some fun today. Broadcasting live from Paris, France.
Live.
I was going to make some, some Paris jokes like, there's a civil war in Paris. Who would surrender first? I haven't showered in a week just so I can fit in. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to take those low blows on the fine French people because I didn't think I'd like Paris. City's awesome.
You like cheese and toast. I mean, shit.
Yeah, they have cheese and toast everywhere. But here it's just like high quality. You know what I mean? It's like I've been doing nothing but feeding my face. Like I haven't been hungry once. And yet I don't feel like bloated and like lethargic and shitty because you don't fill their food full of fillers and preservatives. It's like real natural food. So you just like eat your face off and still feel like a normal human. Like I take like 4 dumps a day.
Like every little snack that you eat comes with sliced tomatoes.
A lot of tomatoes, a lot of cheese, a lot of bread.
Yeah, oils, olive oils.
That's more Italy.
So are you in gay Paris or are you gay in Paris?
Perrier.
One of those two. I don't know.
There's a pun in there somewhere. But yeah, having a great time. Good parties. Everyone speaks English. People aren't assholes like I've been told. All the stereotyping I've been doing of the French has been wrong. It's good to know. That's why you learn things like that. Just 10 days away.
My balls are so full.
From week 1. We are at 10. We're at the last double digit until Raiders Broncos in week 1 kick off. So
this
close.
is like a regular week. Like if we would have played on Thursday and then we play the following Sunday, it's the same amount of time. It's like a regular week.
It's the regular season.
Yeah.
If you squint your eyes, we're in the regular season.
As you're watching this, in 7 days, there's going to be a professional football regular season game. Next Thursday.
Not a football-like substance.
No.
Not a 53-man roster release.
Deal.
Real American professional football. And it never feels more real than when the Raiders 53-man roster is released, which it just did on Tuesday, like every single other team. They had to go down from 90 to 53. In our case, 54, because Josh Jacobs is, that kind of influx just signing his thing. So technically, we get a freebie. Hey, we get an extra one. We're lucky. You want to go position by position? Do you want to go the cut list first?
Let's do the cut list first.
Let's do the cut list first.
We'll end strong with the actual team.
We'll look at the have-nots before we go to the haves.
All right.
So here's the cut list. For those who listen on the podcast, apologies, but I spent at least 17 seconds on Photoshop making the cut list of all the players that were waived, released, all the situations. And there were a couple surprises, a couple damn, I wish we could have kept him, but I get why, What stands out the most to you?
The couple that stand out a lot just because of honestly how they played, but I understand Keelan Cole, Philip Dorsett, they played pretty well in the preseason. Again, it was 2s and 2s and 3s and all that stuff. It wasn't what we saw, like, let's say, 1s versus 1s in like a joint practice or anything like that. But that stood out a little bit.
I'd say Philip Dorsett's the best overall player we let go.
Yeah.
And also, it's weird because he's in the receiver room, which is our deepest room, but he's the fastest guy in that room. And we have a receiver room that kind of could use some speed. We don't have he's like the best flat out smooth guy.
I don't know that he's faster than Trey Tucker, dude.
He might be.
I mean, he might not be.
I mean, he's close. And he's also kind of big. Like he's a tall speedster too.
He's a little bigger.
So and we have a smaller receiving room. So it's it's weird because he's like arguably the best if you just give like a grade, right? Like he's an 82 or whatever. He's probably the highest guy we cut. Yeah. But in a position we need the least.
Yeah, he signed with the Broncos. We're going to see him in week 1.
Yeah, signed with the Broncos right away, which is no surprise. And also, the practice squad hasn't come out yet either. So hopefully we can get, a good handful of these guys. But anyway, yeah, Philip Dorsett I think is probably the best guy we waived.
Yeah. I mean, Drake Thomas, the way he played in the preseason.
Really strong preseason.
Yeah. He signed
20
with
combined tackles.
he signed with Seattle.
Mhm.
I mean, Duke Shelley was given a good amount of money to come over from Minnesota just to not make the team.
Yep.
Damian Williams played really well. I think he signed on with somebody as well. Other than that, I mean, I could see why these guys didn't make it.
I'm surprised we cut Sam Webb, not because he's super good, because like when you're a starter for us for so many, an X number of games last season, and then you won't even be like worthy of a potential backup. Little surprising. Kind of, I guess that kind of applies to Alex Bars as well, where it's like we didn't, he was the weak link on that chain, but we're really low on guard, and he has started 13 games or something, and now doesn't even make the team.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get to the guard position. I think there's like one backup guard. So that can't be permanent. They have to have some sort of guard plan in the future, but won't be tempted to grab them.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's grabbing Alex Bars.
And that's the other thing too, is like strategically, you want to be able to let guys go where you think, okay, we want this guy on the practice squad, but we know no one's going to pick him up in waivers. So there's that strategery as well, right? We're like, look, we'd like to keep this guy around for depth, but we have no concern someone's going to swoop him up, so we can just squirrel him away on a 16 squad practice squad.
And how many times are you going to be able to like put a guy on like injured reserve for the season, right?
Yeah,
like Wagner.
All right, so let's go through the depth charts. No big surprises at quarterback, right? Starter, 2 backups, keeping Hoyer. And Chase got let go.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have hated putting Hoyer, like cutting him and keeping him on the practice squad and keeping that extra position, just because no one else is going to take him.
The Patriots but the Patriots would have.
I know the Patriots you see they only have one quarterback on their roster right now.
That's why they would have done it. And that's the exact guy, him or like let's say Colt McCoy, that type of guy. But Hoyer knows their offense. He was there last season. So, it's a different offense with Bill O'Brien, but still he was there and he knows the personnel and everything. So they would have swooped him up in a second.
There's no better example of why quarterbacks have long careers, why quarterbacks get paid so much, why like the rules bend for quarterbacks, than when there's like a positional jockeying battle for Brian Hoyer. when that's like a thing where it's like, all right, guys, we gotta keep him because we need him. Because when there's like strategery to make sure you keep Brian Hoyer, that shows you what quarterback means in this league.
Yeah, that's how important the position is for sure.
Yeah. Running back, Josh Jacobs is back, baby. Backups, White, Abdullah, Bolden, cut. Sincere McCormick, who played pretty well. Damian Williams, Darwin Thompson, and then Britton Brown's on IR.
Kind of what expected. I mean, I was, if they had kept one more, maybe, but you don't really need to keep that many running backs.
Well, and throw Jakob Johnson in there at fullback.
Yeah. Like I said last year we had one more running back that we kept, but we kept one less linebacker. And I said it's pretty much the same position. It's like the last linebacker or the last running back. They play the same special teams position basically. And this season we kept one more linebacker than we did last year, but we kept one less running back. So again, it's the same position. Basically the special teams guy.
Britton Brown just hanging around by a thread, just hanging on a thread there on IR.
Hair on his balls.
Yeah, I mean, this running back crew, like as much as McDaniels wants to do a running back by committee, this does not seem like a running back committee crew. It's going to be Jacobs the whole time. Like unless Zamir White can learn to like pass block better and be better in the backfield or like pitching catches in the backfield, like maybe he can cut into like third down snaps. Other than that, it's like he's not cutting into Jacobs carries. Like this is
not at all. I mean, look, we heard a lot of good things about Zamir White during joint practices about him busting out big runs and this and that. And possibly because he didn't have the first string offensive line blocking for him. But he didn't look like he was very fluid in his running style. He was like a masher, right? And he wasn't going to make a lot of people miss, and he wasn't going to get a lot of yards after contact. So if you're going to be a bowling ball like that, you better be able to get yards after contact. He seems to, like I said, just like Darren McFadden, he went limp on contact. Like he gets hit, and that's where he gets taken down.
But I feel like the Raiders, because look, he is a good like power back, but they had him mostly running like zone, where that's not his forte. So it made me think that like McDaniels is like, all right, let's see how you do in a running style that's not your own, and he didn't do well. So he's like, okay, great, we've pigeonholed ourselves into Zeus, you're this running back, like this is what you do, right? Power, ISO, like okay, that's what you're doing, because these zone reads, that's not you can't do it. So it's he's kind of pigeonholed. Not that he's like not a back that can play, but it's like, okay, you can only play this.
Only do certain things, yeah.
You can only do certain things. Wide receiver, the golden gem of our roster. Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, Hunter Renfrow, our starters. Trey Tucker, DeAndre Carter, Kristian Wilkerson making it on the 53. Philip Dorsett, like we mentioned, cut. Keelan Cole cut. Cam Sims, Chris Lacey.
It's a little, I wouldn't say surprising. It's a little bit of an eye opener, but he balled out at the last game, and like I was saying in the post game show, that game was showcasing guys who were going to get cut or position battles towards the end, of the season. He had like 10 catches for 122 yards or something like that.
Yeah.
So he showed he can get open. He played with the Patriots a couple years ago. So he's another expatriate,
expat,
where the brass is comfortable with him. They've seen him perform, and the lack of like a big receiver is a little bit of a concern to most. But I mean, I don't know that this offense really has had big receivers in it to be able to function well. I don't think that's like this kind of offense.
Yeah, it's going to be Devontae and tight ends doing the big body moves. Tucker and Carter can also return punts and kicks, which helps. But yeah, I feel like that was the big question. Who's making it, Wilkerson or Dorsett? And they went with the younger guy, which we'll see how it pans out. Tight ends, Michael Mayer, Austin Hooper, Jesper Hort said, the only question is, do they keep a fourth because Cole Fotheringham played so well? Apparently not good enough. Fotheringham and John Samuel Shanker got shanked off the list.
Damn.
And Horsted's a better blocker, so I guess that's kind of what they were thinking, right? Like you got the super deep receiver room, the better receiving tight end. You'd rather have the better blocking tight end.
Makes sense.
The big question is how much time does Hooper play versus Mayer, right? Like there's going to be some clear growing pains. And like we mentioned, Michael Mayer, when you're not – he wasn't the most dynamic tight end in the draft, but he was the best overall. And so when you're not dynamic even in college, I think you've really got some growing pains in the NFL. Like to be like, wow, these guys are fast. Like I can't just lean on my athleticism. I got to start really learning, getting my technique down and everything. I think that takes time. So It wouldn't shock me if Hooper gets more snaps than Mayer in the first half of the season. But obviously the future's with Notre Dame boy.
Yeah, future's with Mayer. It's going to be like a Jason Witten type of thing. Mm-hmm. Not super athletic, but knows how to get open, smart. Witten was a better blocker coming out of I think Tennessee. He went to Tennessee. But we'll see, man. He had granted, he was going against Maxx Crosby most of the time when he was getting eaten up in practice. So it's a good test to be able to go against somebody who's that hard to block. But yeah, man, he got his shit pushed in by Max in practice, like consistently. So we'll see how he didn't back off. He kept getting the extra reps and stuff. So hopefully Mayer learns from that, and it helps his blocking, because that's honestly he has the hands. He has that. We talked about it when we drafted him. He has that a little bit of a wiggle. to be able to make a little bit of separation. Even if he doesn't get separation, he knows how to catch in traffic. A lot of his catches were contested catches. So he's got good hands, good concentration, which is what you're looking for in a tight end, tight spaces. It's going to be the blocking. If he can block, the better he can block, the better he can pass protect and run block, the more play he's going to get.
O-line. Colton Miller, Dylan Parham, Andre James, Greg Reverone, Jermaine Illuminor, Dale Mumford Jr. And we're not sure who's starting-ish between Illuminor and Mumford, but they're both on the roster. And then Justin Huron, Jordan Meredith. Only 8 O-linemen keeping for the Silver and Black. Alex Bars, McClendon Curtis, Netimuti, Vitaly Gurman, and Grossu, all cut. Dalton Wagner on the IR.
I mean, look, you have Meredith is a swing guy. He can play guard or center. You have Illuminor who can play tackle or guard. Thayer Mumford who can play tackle or guard. So you have more guards than just 2. But they're going with flex. They're going with the flex appeal, and they're going with guys that they trust. And I think this year they have a little bit clearer view on who's going to be playing more often and who's going to be able to have the specific roles that they're going to have. So there's no need for an extra lineman, I don't think, this year. Because it was a little bit weird to get a 9th lineman. Normally you don't get a 9th lineman on a squad. Usually it is about 8. But I'm okay with it.
Yeah, no one's picking up Bars. We can squirrel him away on the practice squad.
I think Curtis made it to the practice squad as well.
I am worried about guard depth. I know you aren't, but it's a lot of guys that can as opposed to do well. And you're going to assume, and Josh McDaniels has talked about this a lot. Look, injuries, knock on wood, but injuries always happen in the O-line. You're not looking at your starting 5. You're looking at your starting 8, basically, to get through the entire season. But it is doing what we've talked about a million times, right? Continuity. Basically, all they did was replace Bars with Enron, and it's more or less the same line as last year, which is what they've always been preaching. And
Van Roten's he's a better run blocker. He's got a little bit more of a mean streak in him.
Been around 10 years. He's the one old dude on the squad, right? He's the one.
He's like the old guy that's still can still hang with the young guys,
right? The grizzled vet. D-line, Maxx Crosby, Bilal Nichols, Jerry Tiller, Chandler Jones. No shockers there. Backups, loaded room. Tyree Wilson, Byron Young, Malcolm Koontz, Adam Butler, John Jenkins, Nistajid Silveria on the roster. Cut, Rochelle, Costin, Agha, Butler, Plant, Tarlis, and Willis.
Yeah, it's a lot of D tackles they kept. I think they like a lot of the guys to kind of be fluid. I expect us to do a lot of hockey changes, Mm-hmm. Just keep a lot of fresh guys in there. I think we learned a little bit from last season what happens when you keep your top end guys in too long. The end of the games, we just don't get that pop, that snap off the line. It's just guys are tired, So I was a little concerned only having 4 defensive ends.
Crosby,
Max,
Jones, Wilson,
yeah. There's only 4. And we had 6 defensive tackles?
No, we have 6.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, maybe the way they're going to run their system, they're going to be able to float guys back and forth. But interior, we just need that push up the middle, man. And I'm assuming that we're going to play Tyree Wilson a little bit. Maybe a 4 technique to be over a guard and.
Well, I feel like because no one stands out at defensive tackle, it's exactly like you said. It's if none of you guys are going to be great, you're at least going to be fresh. So we're just going to rotate.
Yeah, just give us what you got while you're in there.
Fresh.
Yeah.
Whereas, if Crosby, Jones, or Wilson isn't on the field, something's wrong. You're not. You don't rotate out Maxx Crosby.
Dude, he plays
every now and then he needs
90% of the snaps. It's crazy.
Yeah, and Chandler's paid so much, and you need to build Tyree Wilson along. It's again, knock on wood, you want injury depth as always, but that's not the game plan. You're not rotating out Crosby. You're rotating out the rest of the defensive tackles. So I guess that's why there's 6.
Yeah, makes sense.
Also, of course, we got to talk about Neil Farrell Jr. getting traded to the Chiefs. Interdivision trade. He was our 4th round pick last year, and he's traded for a 6th round pick. I guess we're forced to call him a flop.
I wouldn't necessarily call him a flop. I just think that he didn't separate himself from the rest of the group. He didn't make himself indispensable.
But look, it's arguably the worst group on the team, and we kept 6 of them, and he couldn't be one of the 6. Like that's
Well,
it's not like he did. It's not like Philip Dorsett, where you didn't make it on the Raiders wide receiver squad, which is their strength. You couldn't make one of the weaker spots, and you're so young. You're thinking, okay, we can still develop this guy. He can still potentially be something.
I mean, it could show that, or it can show just how good like Jade Silvera did. Some of the younger guys like Butler, he's only been in the league a few years.
Yeah.
But like he didn't separate himself from anyone else, right? He's just a Jag, he's just a guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he had some, because he's so young, he does have that rookie contract. He was able to get something back in return. I don't necessarily think it's a flop. I don't know. I mean, I've read a lot of kind of backlash about the draft last year is terrible and this and that. I think we can get into that later. I think that's a little bit overblown. I think we got a little bit spoiled with Maxx Crosby and Hunter Renfrow late in the draft, that we think that like all these guys can play and become Pro Bowlers and stuff like that. Not necessarily the case.
If you can't make it to year 2 on the team that drafted you at the team's weaker position, and like not only does he not good enough to play this season, they also don't think, okay, he can develop into something. Like that's pretty floppy. But
look, that's one way to look at it. But you're dismissing the other side. It's not that he can't do well. It's we have other players that can do what he's doing, and he can get us something back in return. Can the other guys get us something back in return? Maybe, maybe not. It all depends on the body type, how he plays, what he's good at, what the Chiefs were looking for in a player. There's a lot of things going into it than him being a flop.
There's multiple factors, but he's a flop. Like he lasted as long as Leatherwood. But we did get more for him. We did get more for him. We
paid Leatherwood like an extra $12 million to play against us.
We got more for him than we did for Leatherwood and Derek Carr.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, fucking 4th round.
It's fun roster management, isn't it? Linebacker, only 5. The coolest named group on our team.
Some badass
Divine
names.
Diablo, Robert Spillane, Luke Masterson, Curtis Bolton, Amari Burney, Thomas Darkangelo, and Mauga. Didn't make it.
Yeah, I mean, again, we talked about Drake Thomas. I thought Drake Thomas looked really well in the preseason games. He played really well. He looked good. But I didn't necessarily hear his name pop out a lot during like the inter-squad practices and the joint practices and stuff like that. Again, that last game was a game for you to you showcase yourself, see what you can do. It's a bummer that he got signed to someone else, but it is what it is, man. It's not like we kept guys that weren't as good as him. We kept guys that we felt were as good, if not better. So yeah, I think some of this stuff is a little overblown. Like, oh my God, the sky is falling because we didn't keep an undrafted free agent that no one else drafted in 7 rounds. Like, relax.
He was a top 3 surprise for me because of how well he played in the preseason. But he's also kind of like the least specialized. So like Bolton is really good at really good at special teams and super athletic. Like there's a high ceiling there.
Bernie, same thing, super fast. He's like the fastest linebacker we have.
Well, he's great in pass coverage, right?
Oh, yeah.
Which is what we're looking for
a safety
more.
In college, yeah.
Right. So it's like, okay, I feel like maybe Drake Thomas maybe overall better than some of the other backups, but not specialized in a very specific position. So
I would like to rephrase that if I could, or attempt to, if you don't mind.
You may.
I think he's better at what he does well than the other guys, but I think the other guys are a little bit more versatile than he is.
Yeah, I think he's the more finished product than some of the other backups.
And with a more finished product, when they go undrafted and you're a more finished product, well, how high is your ceiling?
Well, and it's just so hard to, like, when it's one of our weaker positions, having someone play well in the preseason, then not keep them. It's like, again, not like wide receiver. We have a bunch of guys that play well. Like, it's a good problem to have at wide receiver. At linebacker, it just feels weird. Like, at first glance, I'm like, well, he played really well. This is kind of, if he can't make our squad, what squad is he going to make? Then you dive into it and you're like, well, they want specialized dudes with higher ceilings, and so you're like,
well, I mean, look, you're looking at a guy who's a tackle, who's quick, a tackle machine, but can't cover. We just got rid of one of those guys in Perryman, and we signed another one in Spillane, who's bigger, stronger, has more experience. So it's like
Perryman got waived. He's not on the roster either,
bro. Look, look. I try to keep calm about this stuff, but we're like, why did we let Perryman go? Perryman got paid less than what we paid Spillane. Well, we offered Perryman what we offered Spillane, and Perryman shit on it, and then no one else offered him anything, and then he took the only deal he really had, which was with the Texans, and then he didn't make the squad. So everyone, let's just chill, because everyone wants to be a freaking, armchair GM and know exactly what they're doing. Just fucking relax. Just relax and let this shit play out.
You're so forgiving of this regime. I love it.
Shut
up with what you think and just trust them.
It's not about being forgiving of the regime. It's about knowing where we are. Because look, on paper, and I don't understand it's on paper, but we have a lot better roster than we had last year, with the limitations that we have of the shitty draft capital that we were dealing with coming in, and also
we had a full draft capital. We just chose
to
use
our active draft capital. We're the worst in the league in active draft capital.
Okay, yeah,
that's what I mean.
I get what you're saying. Not actual draft pick. Just what was
yes, and the dead cap. I think with those restrictions, I think they've done a pretty damn good job of bolstering the competition on the team and making certain positions better and deeper. It's not perfect, because it's not like a clean slate where you can just. It's not like you're playing Madden. You're able to be a GM and you have a clean slate, no dead cap, no nothing. It's not that, but I think that we need to see it on the field, and I think that when people just get up in arms over trading away a 4th round pick and releasing an undrafted free agent linebacker, people go up in arms about that. It's like, dude, just fucking chill.
Of the 54 players that made this, like obviously 53 plus Jacobs, only 15 were around before Ziegler and McDaniels. I mean, this is their roster.
Yeah,
it is their roster at this point, right? And yeah, there's a little bit of there's some dead cap stuff, not crazy dead cap compared to other teams. It's about average. So this is, it's less. You are right in that. Okay, they've set up. They've made their bed. Now they're going to sleep in it. This is their squad, right? Last year, you can talk a lot about, like, look, it was, they what they inherited is what they had to play. They made their changes and stuff. But this year, it's like, okay, this is their roster. Now let's see what they can do with it. Speaking of depth, cornerback, a lot of cuts. Nick Ziegler was like a homer, and when he was the captain football team, it's like, you're cut, Timmy, you're cut. Jimmy, I like your hustle, which is why it was so hard to cut you. Other than that, you're all on the team, except for you, and you. I hit the showers, except you, Bill, you're cut. That was them at cornerback. They kept Marcus Peters, Jacorian Bennett, Nate Hobbs, backups, Long, Faison, Robertson, and a couple surprises. Webb, Brown, Cosby, Shelley, Hall, and Hearn. 6 guys cut at corner.
Again, it's what we've been talking about. This is the product of what we were talking about, or what we heard from the very beginning. Open season, right? Get out there, show us what you got. It's not the fault of anyone but the player if they're a better player than they showed in camp. It's the player's fault. If they were each given ample opportunity to show what they can do. If they didn't play as well as some of the other guys that they kept, that's their fault. There's no one else's fault.
So we knew who the starters were going to be, and hopefully this means that Nate Hobbs stays at slot, which I think is his long-term home, which is it's looking nice. It's looking that's what I was hoping for in the backfield. Is like Opp stays at its slot position. Faison able to stick around despite being hurt. So it seems like, all right, he already had enough like equity in his playability where they kept him. Webb played a lot last season, but didn't make the roster. Little bit of a surprise. Duke Shelley played well and didn't make the roster, but it's kind of like that's what I was wondering is the injury to Brandon gonna knock him down for someone like a Shelley or a Webb to take over? But apparently he played well enough last season where they didn't need to see too much of him in this preseason and training camp.
Yeah, they've seen a lot of Brandon Faison, and I think maybe the injury wasn't as serious as led on. They're just like, all right, you're going to make the team. We've seen enough of you already. Let's just get you healthy through this training camp and preseason. Amik stuck around. Amik he's the freaking Raider zombie, dude. Like he just keeps coming back, even though presumably guys outplay him and he has some rough games. He just seems to keep hanging on. He's a good story. He's an underdog story. Guy's small. I think he's like 5'8", under 190. He just keeps sticking around. I mean, hopefully he shows more and plays better than what he did in the preseason.
Safety starters: Marcus Epps, Trevon Merrick. Your boy Palomao was able to stick around. Chris Smith, Roderick Teamer, and then they cut Johnson and Grant. No big surprises here.
No big surprise.
They kept 5. Sometimes they keep 4, but I think they liked your boy Palomao.
I think what they're going to do is they're going to move Palomao down into a linebacker role, into that 3 safety set that Patrick Graham likes. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where we see maybe the one less linebacker. We have the safety where you kind of flirt back and forth with that guy. Yeah, he's known to play. I mean, Patrick Graham's known to play that 3 safety set and have a box linebacker, which in this case would be Palomao. So yeah, man. I mean, he's a playmaker. He was a playmaker in college. He had a pick 6, 50-yard pick 6 against the Rams. People want to say, "Oh yeah, it was thrown right at him." Yeah. Well, how many did we see thrown right at guys that they dropped?
Yeah.
So he finished the play. They finished the play that was there. So we'll see, man. I think it's if you know what you're looking for and like the history of the coaches, it wasn't a big surprise.
And Smith is their rookie project. I don't think you'll see a whole lot of playing time, but they want him to develop.
Yeah.
And then specialists. I take it back. It's not the wide receiver room's the best in the Raiders. It's the kicking room. Daniel Carlson, AJ Cole. The only change here is Bobin Moyer coming in when they let Trent Sieg disappear. Hopefully that doesn't backfire in any way because Trent was automatic. So I still don't know why. I don't know why they changed our long snapper. I never read anything or heard them explain why.
He committed like the most penalties out of the long snapper position last year.
I don't remember that many. Really?
Yeah. He committed a lot of penalties. It was like 7 penalties.
I don't remember that. Huh. There you go. That's your reason.
Yeah, if you do one thing, just snap a ball. Like you can't fuck it up a lot.
You gotta do it exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you sent me this morning. I didn't see it, so I'm glad you sent it to me. Stephen A. Smith was asked about Jimmy G talking about Trey Lance, right? This whole Trey Lance thing, it's such a bunker situation where you traded.
It's so strange, dude.
3 first-round picks, you move up, get your guy, and now he's like 3rd on your depth chart. The honeymoon phase is over, blah, blah, blah. And so everyone and their mom has asked Jimmy G about it. And so in this sort of scenario, in this type of shows, they're asking Stephen A. about Jimmy G getting asked about the Trey Lance situation. So they're reacting to a player's reaction
to another player.
To other players' reaction. Anyway, here's what he had to say.
My perspective is Jimmy Garoppolo needs to shut the hell up. Okay. Just shut up and play. Okay? Nobody want to hear from you.
He was asked this question, though.
I'm talking about Jimmy. I'm talking about Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm certainly not saying that to you and Dan.
No,
I'm dead serious.
Jimmy Garoppolo was asked point blank, what do you think of the situation?
No. Been a lot of weird situations over there. I'm going by what he said. I'm not talking about him literally talking. It's the words that he chose. First of all, let's understand who Jimmy Garoppolo is. He's a damn good quarterback when he's playing, but it's rare that he plays. He spends more time in an infirmary than on a football field, some would argue. Okay, if he ain't doing that, he's with porn stars on Melrose.
Oh, that happened one time.
In California. Okay, I'm saying that you know of. I happen to know a little bit more than that. You know, that's why I call him porn star Jimmy. And then when you got that going, then when you don't have that going on, okay, and then when you don't have that going on, you missing throws in a Super Bowl that could have helped your team win. Let's be clear as to what I have said. I have been on the record saying this in the past, and I'm going to say this again. The 49ers didn't win because of Jimmy Garoppolo. They've won in spite of Jimmy Garoppolo. They were the number 1 ranked defense last year.
My biggest pet peeve with this blow up, and I know you have many, but mine is I know something y'all don't know from a journalist when he's saying, he's like, oh, it was one time he was with a porn star. One time he's like, well, one time you know of. I know that there's more. It's like, okay, report it.
Why would he air him out? She just reported it. Why would he air him out like that? What?
He's not reporting it. He's saying like, wink, wink. I know there's more. It's like, okay.
Well, that's the report. He's been with more porn stars than just that one.
Okay, but that's not reporting. The reporting would be who, what, when, where, why. This is where I heard it. Here's the evidence. Instead, it's just like, I know something y'all don't know.
It's so stupid, dude. This whole thing was idiotic. Stephen A. Smith just needs to go somewhere. It's like, dude, did Jimmy fuck his wife or something? Like, what the fuck? Why does he go so hard on him for whatever reason? We should all be
so lucky that Jimmy would fuck our wife.
God damn, dude.
Happy wife, happy life. That's what I say.
First off, he made things personal, right? You have a player in Jimmy G, and first off, this whole thing about he had the number 1 defense last year. That's why he won. Well, no one. I mean, you say you've heard it. I haven't heard it that much about Brock Purdy, who benefited from that same situation. It's like, oh, Brock Purdy's this and Brock Purdy's that. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but if you're going to say it about one quarterback in that system, you should say it about the other quarterback as well. I haven't heard any of that. What pisses me off is a lazy narrative that the only reason he won was because of the team around him. Jimmy G is who I mean. Well, before Brock Purdy, no other quarterback could win other than Jimmy Garoppolo for that team. So it's like, okay, I get where he's coming from, but he's just recycling the stale narrative that people have. And to his credit, he did say when he's on the field, he is a damn good quarterback, which I believe he is. But the personal stuff that stuff didn't go anywhere. Oh, he was with porn stars. Like, whoa, okay. So how does that tie into what Jimmy G was saying about the way they handle things up in San Francisco? He couldn't tie it in because all he wanted to do was talk shit on him. And I'm protecting Jimmy G like I would protect anyone else on this roster. It's absolute horseshit for him to go in there and just try to get clicks, try to get views, try to start trending for airing them out like that for no reason. There's no reason for him to do that.
Well, I'll start with the Purdy stuff. I think I think anyone acknowledges that Brock Purdy is in the most forgiving system for a quarterback. And I think everyone knows that, and it's been talked about, but it's totally overshadowed by Mr. Irrelevant rookie quarterback going, 8-1 or something like that, right? Like it gets overshadowed. And you compare that to, he was able to do this. And then you had Jimmy G as, like a 20-something $million quarterback. You got a rookie Mr. Irrelevant doing the same thing. So the idea that Brock Purdy's independent of the system, I haven't really heard that. 2, how shitty of a nickname maker is Stephen A. Smith? I call him porn star Jimmy. It's like, how about Jimmy G String? Way better nickname.
Jimmy Vivid.
There's so many possibilities.
God. Jimmy Brazzers.
He talks like an old guy who's never watched porn before. That's why I call him Porn Star Jimmy. I made up that nickname. Good job, Stephen A.
Tell him Jimmy Garoppolo. Something, man. Like make it. God damn. It just fell really flat to me. It was lazy.
What did Jimmy G say that was so inflammatory about the situation? He's like, yeah, it's, a lot of weird stuff happens there. Like, that's the understatement of the century. 3 first-round picks, you go up to get your guy, your quarterback of the future, and it's a total flop. You trade him to the Cowboys for pennies. Like, weird is the nicest way to put it. Like, Jimmy G literally handled this with kid gloves.
Jimmy G handled it like a pro. I don't think Jimmy G is going to be bothered by this. He doesn't seem like he's that kind of guy. But take a look at what happened to Jimmy G last year.
Pulling his face out from a porn star's butt. Heard it. He's like, I'll be fine. And goes back down.
I can't hear you from the echo. Sorry. But it's like, come on, man. The team would try to get rid of him last year. They couldn't because he had surgery in the offseason. And they kept him, even though all of training camp, they were waiting for a quarterback to get hurt. They said, "Stay away from us. We're not going to give you we're not going to give you a playbook." The first fucking game of the year, Trey Lance gets hurt. Oh, Jimmy, do you mind coming back in and playing? Oh, you play really well, and then you get your foot broken because someone landed on it. Okay, now we move on to someone else. But it's like, that's the weirdness he's talking about, how they handled that whole situation in the offseason with him, not allowing him to practice with the team, not even giving him a fucking playbook during training camp because they were so openly trying to get rid of him.
Stephen A., what's your reaction to Jimmy G's reaction to a reactionary trade? It's like, oh, he gets hurt a lot and he does porn stars. Okay. Great. Good stuff.
Look, man, it's
one of them's a good thing.
Look, I'm just not a big fan of the hot take culture in sports news and sports entertainment right now. It's one of the reasons why I can't even listen to ESPN radio. I know you're part of ESPN, so I apologize. But dude, ESPN radio now, it's like it's not anything that interests me. I would much rather listen to guys' videos on Twitter, like beat reporters and like content creators and stuff like that. I would much rather listen to that than these guys that are just doing what Stephen A. does. Like, I know something you don't know, and I'm not going to tell you what it is, but just know that I know more than you, and hot take, bullshit, and just try to get myself attention. It's idiotic, dude. Stephen A. Smith is a fucking joke. I see him being out of this shit soon because I hope people start getting as tired of his bullshit as I am already tired of it. And it's not just him. It's Skip Bayless, all this hot take bullshit.
Yeah, it is weird that he's saying shut up and play.
Right?
Like, oh, you were the guy that was opposite of the shut up and play just a few years ago. And now you're the shut up and play guy.
Yeah, exactly. I'll say his fucking name. I don't give a fuck. When they were telling LeBron James to shut up and play basketball, Stephen A. was outraged. How dare you? This is a man. He's a grown man. And he has a right to speak his opinion.
Well, I mean, we know why, right?
Fucking idiot, man. He's a fucking idiot.
We know why. He tells some guys to shut up and play and other guys not to shut up and play.
Fuck him, dude. Fucking bullshit.
We know why, right?
Okay. Whatever, man.
So Josh McDaniels was on Bussin' with the Boys. Listen to the whole thing. He had some cool. There's not a lot there for Raider fans. Like, he had like some cool like Mike Vrabel stories from the Pats and stuff like that. Not a ton of like Raider stuff on there. But there's a couple things. Here's Josh McDaniels on the roster in general.
I think Dave's done a good job of really, when you come to a new place, you're trying to figure out, who's there that fits your vision of how you want to play. That isn't an easy process to go through. And every time there's a change, there's ultimately potential changes that are going to take place on the roster, the staff, et cetera, because it's just not the right fit for how you see defense or offense or special teams. And so, we've had an opportunity to do such over 18 or 19 months here. We've changed over a decent chunk of the roster, and that happens to every team. Mm-hmm. But I think we've added competition at most of the spots that we wanted to try to do that in. And right now we're having a competitive camp. Today was a competitive practice. and we're going to keep trying to push that as much as we can. But I think what we've done is we've added some younger players and some players from outside that we feel like have a chance to fit us really well. And now we're trying to blend them together.
So this, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about when we were talking about the Raiders 53 is all but 14 of these players are theirs, right? Ziegler and McDaniels, like it's theirs. And the other part is too, it's like, it could be a positive and negative, but you see some like real, I feel like the best offensive coaches in football can take whatever their quarterback is, whatever their strength is, and build an offense around it. I feel like that's the most offensively genius players because quarterbacks are so rare. Sometimes you just got to take what you can and build something, right? And so teams that can take, like what Josh McDaniels did with the Pats, right? When Brady went down, they went run game for a while. Like he was so good. Like, all right, whoever our quarterback is, that's going to be our offense, right? As a head coach, he's opposite. It's like, I have a system that I want to stick to. And you heard him say at the very beginning of that line, it's like, yeah, you come in, you want guys to fit your system as opposed to me making a system to fit the players. So it was just another kind of solidifying in my mind. Like, yeah, this is Josh McDaniels as a offensive coordinator, super flexible. Josh McDaniels as a head coach, he has a vision and his team needs to fit the vision, not vice versa.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that. I think also you need to have players. There's only so much you can change about your system before it stops being your system, right? There's certain philosophies that need to happen and that need to be certain skills that need to be present. That if they're not, it really throws off what you're trying to do with your system offensively.
Yeah.
I think the biggest issue, honestly, that we had with Derek Carr last season was he's so used to running the offense from the line before the snap, right?
Yeah.
And
he's
it's
best in a hurry up offense.
Yeah, it's a different skill. It's a different skill altogether where you can get yourself into the perfect play that you want, so you don't have to go off of your main read.
Yeah,
you make your main read your only read, and then you just dump it off afterwards. That's what that's what I was saying a lot is, he doesn't go through his progressions. It's his main read. He sticks on it a long time, and then he just dumps it off, right? That's not a Josh McDaniels system. The way his offense runs is the progressions is what gives you the perfect pass. Yeah. And that's not necessarily what Derek Carr's strength was, and that was the issue. He's not going to change. I mean, he being Josh McDaniels, he's not going to change his entire system because the quarterback that he inherited doesn't do something well that he needs his quarterbacks to be able to do to run his system properly. So I get where you're coming from as far as, but there also needs to be some baseline of what the quarterback or what any player can do in order for them to kind of monkey around with the system a little bit. Because again, if he has to change his system so much, it's like you're not hiring him to do what he does best.
Well, at this point, that's all behind us. Luckily, so right. It's his roster, right?
It's like his roster now. Yeah. Okay. I didn't mean to dog on Derek Carr. That's not what this was about. It was just the philosophical difference between what Gruden did and what Josh McDaniels likes to do.
So I have a disease.
Herpes?
I have an addiction. And that addiction is I have this insatiable desire to hear people say amazing things about Maxx Crosby. I can't get enough of it.
That could have gone so many ways.
I can't get enough of it. I'm in back alleys looking for dudes just like give me a Maxx Crosby take.
You remember that? Like, hey, you remember that Chappelle Show episode? If the internet was a place?
No.
You don't remember that episode?
I've seen every Dave Chappelle episode 100 times.
He goes to the mall. It's like a mall. And this guy pops out and he's like, "Hey, bro, do you want the bigger dick? Take this pill." And then like, yeah. You remember that? Yeah. And then Broad Jeremy was there. Like, come on, man, that was hilarious.
That's me with Maxx Crosby. People saying nice things about Maxx Crosby. Like, I can't get enough of it. I can't get enough of it. Here's Josh McDaniels on Maxx talking to Bussin' with the Boys.
Yeah, he's rare. This is 23 years for me, so I've had a handful of guys that are like this, but not many. Where just every single day he can muster up the urgency, the energy, the desire, the effort, the competitive nature just every single rep, every single day. Like you never have to worry if his car's in the parking lot at 5:30 because it's already there in the morning. And he does everything possible to help himself be the best player he can be, to help our team. And he's also learning, I think this is really a cool phase for him. He's learning how to also transfer that to others, and it's one thing to be able to do it on your own. It's another thing to try to infect the rest of your teammates with it and then get as many of those guys to do that as you can.
So that's the next evolution of Maxx Crosby, right? It's like, okay, it's special enough that you get yourself super jacked, hardest worker, you perform, you deliver, you crush it. Like that alone makes you a very wealthy man, a very special player, and a guy you all want on your team. And then you cross that bridge. They always said Tom Brady was the ultimate teammate. Like he immediately made your team better by his example, by getting guys pumped up, by getting guys to follow, get in line, but in a good way, not a totalitarian, but a like put your arm around you as like your cool uncle and get things going, right? That was always
a true leader.
And that's what Maxx Crosby is in his own way. He's not he is a rah-rah guy now. Like you can feel the energy, but he's more like what John Gruden said, your best players have to be your hardest workers. It has to be your hardest workers to set that example. You don't want these rookies coming. You gotta understand, we watch a lot of football. We cover the Raiders, but when you've got some corner from Eastern Illinois that maybe hasn't followed things that well, and he gets to the NFL and he sees a super lazy corner and he's the best on the team, you're like, oh, if you're a superstar, you can drag ass. If you're a superstar, this is how you behave. This is how things work. Like you can't have that on a team.
No.
And we've got arguably your best player, neither Devontae or Max, but arguably your best player, and he's first one there, last one to leave, and he's infecting everybody else positively. That's the next level. And I think this defense desperately needs, because what we lack in talent, it seems like we're going to make up with just fucking gusto, which is putting our huevos on the field, being aggressive, and just swarming.
One of the clips that really stood out to me was Max was on the sidelines and the defense made a play and they were jogging off the field and Max is jumping up and down, waving his freaking towel in the air. And he's yelling at everybody on defense. If someone makes a play, we all celebrate. Everybody. And that's that part of the culture that it can't be understated. Because like the example that you gave, right? Not only does it tell the Eastern Illinois corner that you don't have to work hard to be good, it also tells him, well, he's already where he's already slotted. No one's going to take him over. Like I can't work hard enough to take him over because he's not working hard because he knows he's got that job already. Well, when you have a guy like Maxx Crosby who comes in here, who is obviously one of the better players, if not the top, 2-3 edges in the game right now. And he's the first one there, and he's the hardest worker, and he's the most vocal, and he's the one that's gassing up the guy that you know is going to get cut, right? To him, it's you're wearing the same jersey as me. You're my teammate. You're my family. This is what we have to do. This is what we do here. I don't have to tell you to do it. I'm doing it, and I'm making everyone else follow me. And that's what I said about Tyree Wilson, man. Don't suggest to him, hey, man, maybe you should come join me, early. Like you pick his ass up, you throw him in your car, and you take him. And you keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it until he starts doing it on his own. And that's the type of leader that he's turning into.
I didn't pull it for the show for time, but I did post it on our Twitter if you want to go to @thewindbags. But Josh, it ties these last two things together. Josh McDaniels, because they asked him after, he's like, "Oh, does he play real sound defense?" With kind of like a smirk on their face, like does he play real sound defense? And Josh McDaniels is like, "Great question. No, because you don't want to pigeonhole a guy like Maxx Crosby, right? Like you don't want to be like, all right, you're the C gap. That's it. You're in charge of the C gap." It's like, no, let the dog off the leash, right? Within the scheme, but and that it made a really good point. Is like, and it was going back to how Josh McDaniels is pure system over player until you get a player who who's over the system. He used Randy Moss as an example. He's like, we got Randy Moss in New England. It's like, we're not going to have him running curls and like,
why?
Like, go. You got Randy Moss.
Run.
Do Randy Moss stuff. And so he changed the system for it. And that's what he's saying. And it sounds like the entire defense is going to run around Maxx Crosby next season. It's going to be like, all right, Max, you do you, and we'll build the defense around it, which is what you do when you have a
exactly what you do when you have a player like that. Yep.
You know what? Like the reason why you scheme is because you have players that are limited. You're like, okay, Merrick, you're only good at this, so we're going to put you in that position to succeed. You do this well, so we're going to scheme to that. It's like, all right, Max, you do everything amazing. Dogs off the leash,
just go,
and we'll worry about the rest. Like they'll know, like, all right, maybe if you feel like going inside, our outside linebacker knows you got to be ready to go inside or outside because you don't know what Max is going to do. Because imagine what that does to a quarterback when you have no fucking clue what Maxx Crosby is going to do.
But also, too, one thing that he said that I don't know, I didn't hear you say it, but he said that as long as he communicates with his guys what he's doing, then he has leeway to do what he wants, as long as he communicates. And that's, I think that's something that hopefully the first team has kind of come into sync, kind of knowing and knowing what he's supposed to do as opposed to what he's lined up to do.
With the Neil Farrell trade, let's take a quick look. And we'll do this quickly, and then we'll get to Autumn Windbags. But I do want to – it's the only draft class of Dave Ziegler. Like, we're still learning what kind of GM and what kind of drafter he is. We don't know. He's never been one, right? He's learning on the job. So I think it's really important to it's always important to judge a draft class to see if it's good or bad. And then B, compare it to the subsequent draft classes and see, is Ziegler getting better? Is he learning? Is he finding a style? What's he good at as a drafter? What's he bad at a drafter? That kind of thing, right? It's like grading Aiden O'Connell in the preseason. That's all we got.
That's all we got so far.
That's all we got so far. 2.5 preseason games, and that's. I know. Are we getting too excited? Maybe, but all we have is stuff to get excited about, right? Could he flop? 100%. It's preseason. Oh, yeah. But all we got is this, right? Can Ziegler turn into one of the best drafters and best GMs in football? Certainly possible, but all we got really is one draft, and it's not great. Obviously, rounds 1 and 2 went to get Davante Adams. No brainer. That's
home run.
Done deal. No problem. The third pick, Dylan Parham, starter. That's a hit. That's a win. You're a third-round pick, and he's a starter, and a flexible one, right? They think
start day one. One of the best rookie linemen in the league. Mm-hmm. For all we know, he was the best rookie guard in the league last year.
Hit. Zamir White. He hasn't shown much, and it's hard to know if him getting no carries last season was just because Jacobs was playing fantastic. They wanted to run the wheels off of Jacobs. They didn't plan on keeping him, so why not? Like, why waste fresh legs when this guy's going to be gone? It obviously was great, right? He was the focal point of our offense. We haven't seen great out of Zamir White. And for a third-round pick, a fourth-round pick, I'd like to see more out of running back. So far, not a good pick, I would say. Farrell, traded, flop. I mean, I say flop. Maybe you can be a little more forgiving, but he lasted as long as Leatherwood. I mean, that's pretty floppy. At a position of need. Butler just got waived. He got nothing for him. He was a 5th-round pick.
He's back on the practice squad.
Practice squad. Okay, so yeah, didn't make the 53 on the practice squad. Mumford, he's a depth guy, but sixth round pick, depth guy. More, fine. Nothing, not good or bad. And then Britton Brown, has he played a single offensive snap? He just played a little special teams last season, right? Okay.
No.
So far, out of the first draft class, not including Davante Adams, which you need to count that, but for argument's sake, you got a starter and a depth guy. So far, not great. First draft class.
Well, look, the general consensus is if you can get 3 starters out of a draft, it's a good draft.
Mm-hmm.
And I did some numbers over the last 5 drafts. Okay.
Oh,
You ready?
mathing.
Okay. The last
Well,
5.
it looks way better when you compare it to the past draft class.
No, not our draft, just drafts in general.
Oh, okay.
The last 5 drafts, and I'm comparing this to Pro Bowlers just to show you the players that reached heights, right?
Mm.
The last 5 drafts, 1,286 players were drafted. Out of those 1,286, 91 made the Pro Bowl. That's less than 1%.
Mm.
Okay. Now, 160 players were drafted in the first round. 43, half of the 91 basically, were from the first round, right? The first 3 rounds, 69. So almost, what, 2/3, right?
Math.
A little more than 2/3. Yeah, a little more than 2/3 of the players that are drafted that are going to be Pro Bowlers. So lock starters, guys that are producing at a high level in the first 3 rounds. So you look at the first 3 rounds that we had, we got the best player in his position and a lock starter for 10 years. Not bad. Not bad when you look at it from that perspective. That's why I'm not so worried about 4th round and on. Can you find guys? That's why I said earlier, yeah, if you find a Maxx Crosby or a Hunter Renfrow in the 4th and 5th rounds, great. Yeah, you can find those guys. But this numbers show 766 players were drafted the last 5 seasons in rounds 4 through 7. 22 Pro Bowlers out of those 766 players. So it goes to show you a lot more dud than stud. We just happen to have 2 guys in the same draft in subsequent rounds, 4th and 5th in the same draft, who ended up being Pro Bowl players. In Maxx Crosby's case, an All-Pro. So when you take a look at it from that perspective, yeah, that's what normal drafts look like. Is you maybe hit a guy who's still on your team. Okay, you got Mumford still on the squad, White's still on the squad, Parham is a lock starter, and barring injury, he's going to be a starter for years to come.
It goes back to what I always say: volume, picks. There are bad drafters. There are bad drafting GMs. There aren't a lot of great ones. I don't think there's any. There's no GM that's like got a magic formula that no one else has. There's no GM's ever done it. It's just that's what people always talk about. Oh, the Patriots draft so well. They have so many players they drafted. No, they don't. They just have 10 picks a draft.
They got a ton of picks.
Belichick is just great at getting compensatory picks and knowing when to trade his guys away for picks. Like that's what he's good at. Like that's what you need to be good at as a GM. Accumulating picks, being smart with draft capital, not trade. Like we traded up when we didn't have to this last one. That's what you don't want. That's what you don't want to fuck up. Trey Lance situations, right? Like that's the skill of a GM is knowing the value of a pick and executing accordingly. Not like, oh man, I knew this guy in the 4th round was going to be a star. Like no one does that regularly. The ones that do it regularly are the ones that have 3 4th round picks.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Or get
the guys who say it regularly, like Gruden, are the ones that are like shitting drafts year after year. When you're reaching,
you're like, that's our guy. I know he's the one. Whatever it takes, go get him.
Yeah. And
that's where you fail.
I think if we look at it from that perspective, we have a lock starter, barring injury. What guards start for 10 years in the NFL, and he's one of the best rookie linemen in the league last year. Okay, he's a starter. He's going to be a starter for a long time to come. Okay, you got that. You got Mumford, who is a rotational guy, played a lot of snaps last year as a rookie. You would think he would get better. He was in the running for the starting job. We don't know if he got it or not, if it's aluminum, who knows. But you got a guy who's going to be able to be a high rotation guy and who has some position flexibility. And then you use your first 2 round picks to get one of the best, if not the best player.
You had 6 picks in the whole draft. Like you're not going to get 6 starters. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, if you get half, you get half starters, and one of the guys the best player in his position, and the other guy is going to be a starter for you for 5, 7, 10 years. That's a pretty damn good draft, dude.
This is just a great example of you need volume. That's it, right? And how much do you credit Ziegler for the Adams trade? Like it was gonna happen. Like Adams wanted to come. Like he didn't. Whatever. Like how do you want to give credit?
It's like giving credit to pull him out for that pick 6. It was thrown right at him, but guess what? He completed it.
He
finished the play.
You handed the layup and you didn't fuck it up, right? So there's
There's something to be said for that.
But again, like if you're trying to rebuild a roster, 6 picks isn't enough, right? And again, you had to make the Adams trade, done deal. Like not a no brainer. But I think that's less on Ziegler and more on theory. It's like, all right, you're rebuilding a roster. You need more than 6 picks. You need a lot. That's how you win. And so that's what we're gonna have to see moving forward. Less about how does Ziegler draft. Well, you do have to see that because you could end up with a Gruyak situation. But it's more important to me, and it's been proven time and time again. Do you understand the value of a draft pick? Can you maximize it? And can you swindle the other 31 GMs for things to go your way? That's what I care about most as far as roster building. Then there's contract negotiations. Ziegler still has a lot of work to do on that end. But as far as just roster building in the draft, you got to understand the value of a draft pick.
Yeah.
And then everything falls into place after that.
Ziegler's doing the little things to be able to get himself more ammunition. He traded a guy that didn't separate himself from anyone else, and he got capital back. He took on an international player, and you get compensatory picks for stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So, we didn't talk about it because it just came out right before we started recording. But Josh Jacobs tweeted that there's no hard feelings between him and the Raiders. Everything's all good. And that's why I was saying from the beginning, I think this whole divide the locker room and fracture the locker room talk is a little bit overblown. I think everyone involved realizes it's business. So I think that Josh Jacobs and Ziegler and their camps, they realized what it was. This is just business negotiation. That's all it was. It's nothing personal. Now that he's in, you saw Ziegler freaking meet him in the parking lot, all smiles with the long hug. Everything's all good. And I don't think this is going to wreck anything for next year either. For them to try to maybe, try something to sign us.
I will say, and I've said it before, one of the best strengths of Ziegler is a likable motherfucker. Like you asked, also part with Busting the Boys, Josh McDaniels talked about how he brought Ziegler into the NFL and how he's never had a bad time with Ziegler. He's like just a great guy, fun guy. And that kind of ties in nice to McDaniels, who's like the robot. I just do football.
He showed a little personality in the interview.
He's adding a little bit. Just a little bit. But Ziegler's the fun guy. That's why I always say, like, no fan dislikes Dave Ziegler, despite the fact he hasn't really wowed anybody with his GMing. Like, he hasn't done anything. I think he's made more mistakes so far than hits, but no one dislikes him. Everyone likes him because he's a likable guy. And that's, I think, it can be rough in that, let's say he does kind of flop and just doesn't have it as a GM as the season goes, as the years move on. He might keep his job longer because people like him. But the positive spin is when things get heated with your players, I have all the faith in the world that Dave Ziegler can smooth things over emotionally. He's a likable guy. It's like, all right, if this were Gruden, he could have gotten just like super pissed off at Jacobs and said, fuck him, God, trade him for a 5th or like whatever, right? He could have flipped out. Ziegler, it's like, hey, bro, come to my office. What's
the issue? Let's talk.
You hungry? Have a seat, buddy. How you doing?
Well, look, the thing is, I think the more dangerous thing about Gruden was the fact that he was just a bold-faced liar, and people didn't trust him. We heard that a lot about Gruden, is he would tell you one thing, and then you just go behind your back and just do something else.
Players liked him, though. Players
that were his guys liked him. There was a lot of players that didn't, and I heard a lot of the same stuff. Now, if you're on his team and he gasses you up and he tells you what you want to hear, great, you like him. But there were those guys that, hey, he'll tell you one thing to your face and he'll do something different or tell someone else something different about you than the way he told you to your face.
Yeah. I mean, if that helps the team, then great, right? Like if you can get a negotiation where it's like, take my word for it. Psych, gotcha, bitch. We're doing it this way. But that's why I think Ziegler and McDaniels, personality-wise, I think McDaniels did understand, like, there's kind of a gaping hole in my personality, and to have someone like Ziegler be the guy.
You said personality, right?
Gaping. Ready to do some What Up Windbags?
Yes, sir. We.
9 Spartan 40. This is the first time in 10 years Soto is considering buying a number 4 Raiders jersey. You didn't consider buying it after 2016? After that season?
It was after 2017 when I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm not going to buy a card jersey.
This time last year, you called him a top 12 to 14 quarterback. Let's not forget that.
No, yeah. I said it was average to slightly above average.
Thang Vu 100.
Wait, before we move on, the Farva jersey.
So we have a shop now, guys. We are selling swag. People have been asking about it. We're happy to do it. We haven't even gotten ours yet, but you can go ahead. It's down in the store down below. If you're watching YouTube, it's on the link in the podcast as well. And we've got the regular, Autumn Windbag logo on the t-shirt. If you want to just rep the show, it's great. We got a couple good ones. We got the logo that we got Farva number 4 on the back of the jersey. We got the Autumn Windbags face from Super Troopers. Farva's on there as the face. And we got some other ones coming out as well.
Good stuff, man. It's going to be fun. You guys are going to like it.
I think you're going to dig it.
And man, you can get it on t-shirts. You can get it on tank tops. You can get it on hoodies. You get
water
it on
bottles,
chefs, aprons, cum rags, all that stuff. Freaking cum socks, everything.
Thangvu 100. I think this is from one of your.
This is from my live after the Dallas game.
I agree with you that Tyree Wilson was disappointing in his first show in the pros. Hopefully that will change in time. But usually, if someone is good enough to be a top 10 pick, you should see something that differentiates him from the others, especially playing against the twos. As far as O'Connell goes, we need to see him play with and against the starters for a better evaluation. I was traveling during that show, so I didn't get to watch it. What were you saying about Tyree?
It's just that he showed a little bit of rust. So I responded to Fang, and one thing that we have to pay attention to, okay, because context does matter. This whole entire offseason, after he hurt his foot in November, Tyree Wilson spent his time getting better, getting healthy, not working on the nuances of pass rushing. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have to focus on that. Did he show something that's to differentiate him from others? Yeah. He picked up a fucking lineman and just pushed him 15 yards back.
Yeah.
Now, does he need to have more awareness? If you guys saw the drill where he picked that sled up and he tossed it to the side, that last toss to the side part is what he needed to do after 3 or 4 steps in order to find the quarterback. He didn't.
I don't think we learned anything new, good or bad, about him from the preseason. We know he's a physical specimen. We know the high upside, and we know he's a project technically. Yeah. And that's exactly what we saw.
For right now, all he needs to do is develop one move off of his bull rush. That's it. This first season, if he can develop one solid move off of the bull rush, that's all he needs, because he's not going to be facing double teams, right? If they're going to chip on freaking Crosby's side, or they're going to double team Crosby's side, or he's going to be pushing up the middle against guards, which is a win-win for us anyway.
All of Raider Nation needs to make peace with the fact that usually, even a 6th overall pick, even a guy drafted as high as Tyree Wilson, with an injury, barely any preseason, no training camp, as a rookie, he's probably not going to produce this season. That's usually the case. Right?
Khalil Mack had 4 sacks his rookie season.
Dude, the Parsons of the world are 1 in a billion. Tyree Wilson was drafted to be a cornerstone of our defense for 10 years, right? Be prepared for him to have a 2.5 sack season. We're all hoping he's amazing out of the gate. We hope his learning curve is super fast.
He did make some good plays against the run, though.
That's what we're hoping for, and there's the potential, right? But usually, a guy that was drafted as a project, as a physical specimen, who missed training camp, barely played in the preseason, they don't turn to Pro Bowlers out of the gate. That's not usually the case. So make peace with that as we're evaluating. Now, he can still flop, but make peace with that fact as we evaluate Wilson throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Keith Pardini, 9065. All this effing drama, and what did he gain? Nada. And next year he may face the same thing, but at about 14 mil. I'm assuming he's talking about Josh Jacobs.
Yeah. Well, he did gain, a couple $1,000,000. He gained about 1.9 million.
If he hits all his incentives.
His incentives will look, it's 11.8 guaranteed, and there's only 200,000 in like bonus or incentives, and those are roster bonuses. So if he plays in those games, he's going to hit everything. So it's looking pretty likely he's going to make the 12 million. So did he gain? Yeah, he gained. He got more than what he would have gotten out of the franchise tag. He got paid what he wanted to play in a per season, pretty much all guaranteed. So yeah, he did get what he wanted. Next year, I don't think he's going to really care about getting franchised for 14 mil. I think he'd be probably be like, all right, cool. You want to give me 14 mil next season? I'll take it. So 2 seasons, $26 million. That's 13 mil a season. That's kind of what he was looking for anyway. I think it's a win-win, even if we did do franchise tag him next season.
What he really gained is he got to not have to work all summer.
Dude, the fucking Raiders, they've offered him this deal like almost a month ago. This same damn deal. And that's why there was no talks and nothing new. Remember how like Ziegler and Jimmy, there's nothing new, because the same deal was offered to him like a month ago. He's like, well, I don't want to go to training camp. I don't want to play in preseason. I'm just going to stay in shape. And what I tell you, what did I fucking say? I said the dead week before the season starts, that's when he's going to come back. That's when he's going to practice, and he's going to be ready for the freaking first season game against Denver. And that's exactly what happened.
No, he came in a week early. You said the dead week. He came in a week early.
He signed like on a Friday or Thursday of the week before. He didn't have practice. He signed on Friday before the game on Saturday. So there was no practice until Tuesday.
I think almost every single person was saying he's playing week 1. I feel like that's. I don't
think so.
All the like insiders, writers,
looking at such different things, man.
I'm talking like writers, journalists, and insiders.
Oh, yeah.
We're all like, yeah, he's playing week 1. Whether he comes in a week before, 2 weeks before, he's playing week 1.
Being a martyr sounds great until you have to give up shit that you want. You know, it sounds great until I have to give up my money by not playing. No. We're not doing that. Josh is not doing that. Josh is playing.
Yeah, he swindled the fuck out of the Raiders. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna hold out. Guarantee my.
I don't get that. I don't get how you can say that they swindled him when
he didn't have to practice with the team. He should have been practicing with the team, right? Like, look.
I mean, look. In a perfect world, we would want him to, but I don't necessarily call that being swindled. I think everyone knew what was happening.
He got the W. He didn't get fined for missing preseason. He's gonna get 12 mil.
Dude, if I'm smart enough with my dumb ass to tell you when this whole thing started, when you said, how concerned are you? And I said 0% concerned. I said, talk to me in the dead week before week 1. If he's not signed by then come talk to me. But until then, 0 concern.
It was every day from the preseason added 0.01 concern until preseason was over. And then that's when it was like, okay, then maybe there's something going on here we don't know about, right?
Until then, I was not concerned whatsoever.
At the end of the day, he's coming, he's playing. He's getting a pretty penny. He's cutting under the salary cap a little bit, but he's worth it.
I mean, dude, we had the 10-1 already there. We moved around a little bit of money. We moved around some of Jones's money. We moved around some money from, I think, Miller, and we were able to get some cap space. That's how we were able to offer him that deal for 12 or 11.8.
And we get 54 players on the roster for another day and a half. All right. That's it for us. We'll be back. We'll be 1 day early again next week. We both have responsibilities that'll keep us busy. I'm going to go. I'm actually going to Versailles today. Palace. Versailles.
Maybe they'll put a piece on you.
Apparently, you can rent golf carts and just zip through the vineyards at Versailles.
That'll be fun.
I'm gonna try to get kicked out of a French palace. I'm gonna see if that can do that.
I don't know if that's gonna work out good for you, man. I wouldn't do that.
I'm gonna wear all Raider gear.
I'm
gonna walk out like Randy Marsh from South Park. What do you arrest me for? Oh, this is America. Isn't this America? Like, sir, you're in France. Well, this is America. What do you arrest me for? Oh, this is America.
I'll make sure to watch TMZ and make sure if you're on there or not.
Scour the French news sites. See if you can get
the French Star, whatever the hell they call it.
Until then, knock on wood if you're with me. Hey, you made it to the end of our video. Great job. I know you want more. Go ahead and click the next video. And if you're feeling crazy, go ahead and subscribe.